Hello YouTube! Today we're going to be talking about mental health in the context of self-improvement, which is the reason why we are outside, because this is the perfect environment to discuss how to grow a healthier mindset when it comes to approaching life and this existence. When I began writing this script, I didn't really have a direction in mind. I just wanted to make a list of all of the things that I've applied to my life to make it better. And so I didn't really have an angle. I didn't really want to come out saying, oh, go against comfort and reject modernity. But it's sort of what ended up happening, because I found out that pretty much every single item that ended up on my list was related in one way or another to the rejection of comfort. Meaning things that on paper are supposed to make your life easier, but somehow manage to make you more miserable. And I think that many of us suffer from that specific aspect of modernity. But because comfort is also extremely pleasant, it's tough to realize it. And I think that by giving you an outside perspective, I'm going to allow you to reflect back on things that you think help you, but in reality, they do the exact opposite. And so this is going to be fairly long, because I don't want this to turn into a weird reject modernity meme video. There's enough of that on the internet. Instead, I want to give you something actionable with a lot of nuance. So this video is naturally going to be extremely long. I also don't want to demonize the modern world too much, because without the modern world, you wouldn't be able to watch this video. So I think that there is an in-between, a middle ground that must be met. So the goal of that middle ground is going to be to pinpoint the aspects of modernity and comfort that I deem toxic for your mental health to allow you to cut them out of your life. And the challenge with this is that, as I said, you exist in a modern world and you are yourself a modern man. So all of these aspects in your life have become normal to you. They've become normalized and they have become a part of you. Because what makes modern man and what makes primitive man is first and foremost his environment. It's what surrounds you. So you really don't have much of a choice, right? This is what you are. You are modern. And if you end up detesting that very fact about yourself, you're not going to be able to move forward. I believe that it's a possibility for us modern men to remain modern and advanced, quote unquote, while at the same time realizing that we are a direct product of the influence of modernity, and we also, as a result, have the ability to remove ourselves from it. And if we do that, I think that we're going to be able to improve our mindset and improve our outlook on life. It is extremely peculiar that apparently this modern life that is so comfortable and should be so pleasurable is at the same time making us all miserable. A lot of us are not living our best lives, to the point that some people want to go back in time. How is this possible? If this is supposed to be the best timeline and the best of times, how is it that we all wish we weren't so advanced? Well, I think it's because things have been added to our existence that we don't really need. And these things end up, because they pile up on our shoulders, becoming a burden. So today, I'm not going to tell you to add things to your life. I'm not going to tell you to start meditating or things like this. Instead, I'm going to tell you to subtract. I'm going to tell you to do less things, allow less things to come into your life, because I believe that these are those modern habits that eventually end up making you unhappy. And so it is your responsibility to push them away. But before we begin, if you enjoy these videos about psychology and self-improvement, consider supporting my work on Ko-fi. I'm not asking you to do it right now because you have yet to watch the video, but if at the end you learn something from me and you want to thank me for it, you can click the first link in the description, and I'll allow you to either donate or to pledge a monthly sum of maybe $3 that is going to directly support my work. Without that Ko-fi page, this channel cannot exist, and so I want to extend a big thank you to everyone who is willing to donate, because without you, these videos would not be possible. So let us get started. The first thing I'm going to ask you to do is to limit your consumption of media. I know that this is probably advice that you've received a million times in the past, because it's at the top of the list of every self-improvement guru. Spend less time on social media. The issue is that at the same time, these people make their content on social media, so there's a bit of a discrepancy in their discourse. I think that rather what I'm going to tell you to do is to analyze the type of media that you consume because, while certain sources are good and beneficial to your life, others are directly detrimental. And so, if you are the type of person who spends a lot of time consuming these toxic sources of media, it's perfectly normal that your life is going to be miserable as a result, because you are what you eat, but you also are what you consume. You are not just the sum of the people that surround you, you're also the sum of the media that surrounds you. And some of it we cannot control, like publicity, for example. You're being bombarded by it and you don't really have a say in the matter. But with certain things like TV, for example, or the YouTube videos you watch, or the Instagram content that you consume, this is directly in your control. So what I'm going to tell you to do is to actually take a good look at the media that you watch, because the medium in itself is not the problem, right? YouTube is just a platform to make videos. After that, the type of videos that are made make or break the impact that they have on your psyche. And the thing that you might have noticed with modern social media and modern news outlets in particular is that the majority of the content that is produced on there is designed to make you feel a certain way because it moves you, and so it keeps you engaged. And so if it were to move you towards self-improvement by making you more motivated, that would be a good thing. But a lot of the time you find that that type of content instead makes you mad or it makes you sad. And this is paradoxical because you could think to yourself, well, what is the point? Don't these sources of media want to retain my attention? Why do they make you mad or sad? Well, they perfectly understand one thing: the psychology of frustration. If you look at the goal of mainstream media nowadays, it's not to keep you informed. Their information is completely subjective. None of that is going to be something that is applicable to your life or even relevant. What they do instead is they feed you information that is as negative as possible, because that way they keep you watching. And this is an inclination of the human spirit that has to do with evolution. You will notice that as a human, you tend to hyper-focus on negative interactions and negative emotions, because these tend to be the ones that have the highest risk of endangering your survival. So this is what you're going to spend all of your attention on. The positive things you're going to forget very quickly. And the news uses that penchant of yours to feed you information that is going to trigger some level of anxiety. Things, for example, that are going to endanger your standard of living. Things that might endanger you and your loved ones. These things will capture your attention. Whereas if I tell you that polar bears are doing tremendous, okay, it'll make you happy for half a second, but then you'll move on. If I tell you, however, that polar bears are dying and that the ice caps are melting and that you're going to drown in 25 years, that is going to capture your attention because it's going to scare you. Fear is a very strong motivator. And so any type of information that is going to make you fearful for the future is going to get you coming back. Because if the media can, in a sense, pretend to be a form of Nostradamus that is going to be able to tell you precisely what will happen in your future, why would you not come back? This is literally information that could save your life. We know deep down that this is bullshit, but it's tough to fight that instinct. And you might tell yourself that it's very important to stay informed, but the question I have for you is, what is the point of intaking information that you have, one, no use for, and two, that directly damages your outlook on life? If you feel worse after watching the news and you can't even apply what you learned, then it's just a net negative. And to be clear, I'm not telling you to dodge negativity. It's a type of advice that I try to reject because it's not realistic. Negativity is part of life. It's positivity and negativity are two sides that you have to deal with on a daily basis. What I'm telling you is, don't bring in more negativity that you don't need. Real life will already give you enough. You don't have to download it directly from the source by looking at other people who are miserable. That's helping absolutely no one. And if you are able to do that, you'll find also that you'll be much happier on a day-to-day basis, because what this behavior creates is what I call a cycle of desperation. What the news tries to create is exactly that. They want to make you feel bad, so you come back to them and you feel even worse. They keep that going. If you step away from the source for a long enough time, you'll realize that, one, you never needed it in the first place, and two, you will feel much, much better. It's not just mainstream media. Mainstream media just so happens to be the main culprit. But if you are my age or my generation, you most likely don't even own a TV, or you don't even watch TV, you don't have cable. But you're still bombarded with that unneeded negativity because you're still on social media. We replaced one poison by another. The boomers were brainwashed by the TV, and we are brainwashed by the computer and by the phones. And how exactly are you supposed to improve and work towards being happy if you in your pocket carry the item that reminds you that life sucks and that life is horrible. It's simply not going to work. So limit your intake of these things. And this also goes for all of my homies who hate the normies and who tell themselves, oh, at least I'm not like this. I get my information from 4chan. Well, 4chan is just as bad, if not as fucking worse. 4chan is what is known as a hurt box. It's a place that is meant to make you mad. It's designed to make you mad. It's designed to get you arguing with strangers on the internet. It is not a place to get info from. So if you're like me and you used to spend your teenagehood on 4chan, please do yourself a favor and leave this godforsaken place. You have never benefited from this stupid sinkhole in the first place, and you know that. You might have developed a codependency with the place, and you might check the front page regularly because you think that one day something will happen on there that is actually worth your time. It will never happen, okay? Nothing ever happens, and even if it did, it would just be negative stuff. So do yourself a favor and step away from there. But this tendency of going on certain forums or websites just to get mad is now extremely developed to the point that it started a new meta of content creation. And I'm certain you noticed what I'm talking about here. It's content creators who make posts specifically to enrage you. In fitness, it is very popular. It's people who are contrarians who are going to figure out something that people love and are going to say, okay, I'm going to make a post shitting on that thing. Even if my argument or information is garbage, it doesn't matter. It will get a lot of people mad, and so I will get a lot of traction. And the issue is that avoiding these posts is extremely difficult because the way an algorithm works in a place like IG, for example, is twofold. One, it figures out who you are. So it figures out what you like and what you think, what you believe, what your ideology is. And then it will feed you posts that align exactly with that. That's already bad enough because it creates an echo chamber within your own phone. And so you just end up reinforcing your own beliefs and you're never actually challenged. But then what it also does is that because it knows what you think, it also knows what you don't want to hear. So it will also feed you posts from the exact opposite of the spectrum because the algorithm only reacts to interaction. And since you are very likely to react and interact to something that makes you mad, these posts are also going to flood your front page. Now, you could say, well, that's a good thing. It's balancing me out, right? It's giving me the opposite opinion. Well, yeah, it would be the case if these posts weren't designed on purpose to be abrasive, but they are. And so what they do is just, they make you mad. And when you're mad, you cannot be happy and you cannot focus on your improvement. The ancient Greeks were already saying it. What they defined as madness and as anger and wrath was you being taken outside of your body. And when you're taken outside of your body, you're no longer in control and you can no longer move forward. You belong to someone else. This is why when we say one who can make you mad possesses you, that is absolutely correct. You become their thing. When you click on that post that is designed to make you mad, you become the property of the person who made the post for however long you spend watching that garbage. And this is what I call this new genre of media, outrage porn. And an example I'm going to give you that a lot of you guys are going to be able to relate to is, if you're a dude, most likely you have been shown at some point or the other these short videos of young women, usually Western women, who act like complete idiots, who are going to say things that are outrageous or stupid, they're going to act like scans or whores. If you are a guy, most likely these posts are going to make you mad because you have a certain idea in your head of what you want a woman to behave like. And when a girl goes against that, you're going to get in your feelings because you'll think, oh, she's not virtuous and all women are like this and it's doomed and I'll never be able to date and I'll never have kids, yada, yada, yada. You spiral. But the issue is that all of this is based off of one post that was created and curated on purpose to make you mad. The person who owns that page has interviewed hundreds of young women. All of these women that wouldn't make you mad don't match what the content creator wants. What they want is one that is going to trigger you. And so that is what you are shown. And what might end up happening to you is that you're going to, slowly but surely, develop feelings of resentment towards women, thinking that the content that you're shown represents all of them, when in reality, it's just the algorithm. But slowly, it's going to warp your image of the opposite sex, and it might even end up damaging your perception of women and future relationships. I guarantee you that the majority of young men who call themselves incels or whatever on the internet nowadays, who hate women, don't really hate women. They hate the image and presence of females on the internet that is being shown to them. But that is not women. If they could go out in real life and interact with real girls, they would realize that they are actually getting mad at a statue. They're getting mad at a golem. So, since these people will never stop doing that because outrage porn is extremely popular and gets you click, it's your responsibility as an adult, as a man, to stop clicking on it. I have an Instagram page. I am tired of you guys sending me posts by PD users who inject themselves on camera and tell me, oh, look at this. Isn't that outrageous? Doesn't that make you mad? Yes, it does. Stop showing it to me. Why are you seeking out content that is making you mad? One, you're giving visibility to that person, so you're making them more popular. And two, it's not helping your cause. The best way to get rid of that type of people and personalities is simply to ignore them. For them, all attention is good attention. So if you click, you are validating them. Don't do that, and don't look for reasons to be mad. Because overall, any post that is attempting to goad you into strong emotions, anger being the worst one, is bad for you. Lust is, of course, another big one. Do not click on posts that are clear thirst baits. Do not click on posts that clearly are only there to trigger your libido. You know exactly why these women do it. It's because it gets them money, it gets them popularity. Do not play into their system. And there's another type of media I want you guys to stop consuming, and that is media about politics. Look, first and foremost, the fact that politics is now so ingrained in social media culture should already tell you that there's a problem, because it's a clear proof that it has lost all its seriousness. Now it's just a big circus. And the same goes for philosophy, by the way. Philosophy pages on Instagram is the worst thing that has ever happened to humanity. The level of stupidity that most of them convey blows my mind. Which is peculiar because both politics and philosophy are supposed to improve your life, but now they have been turned into items that directly make your life worse because they carry the same essence of outrage that I described previously. No one has ever improved their life by arguing about politics online. It's absolutely impossible. And I insist that I'm talking about politics online, right? I'm not telling you to not care about the future of your country. If you are invested, that's good. Regardless of your side of the spectrum, I don't care. I think that having passion for your people and your nation is a good thing. But allowing that type of content in your social media life, that is only detrimental because it does two things. One, it makes you dumb because, as I just explained, the algorithm is designed to show you things that you either agree strongly with or things you disagree strongly with. It never shows nuance. So what it does is it breeds a generation of people who are trained to be intellectually dishonest because now they're going to only accept things that align directly 100% with their ideology, and anything else that they don't deem pure enough, they will reject. That type of mindset only works online, right? In everyday life, you can't work like this. You have to make compromises. You have to be flexible. You have to have nuance. But it's not the only thing that it does, because if it only turned you into an idiot, it would be fine. Look at the amount of people who are complete consummate idiots and they live perfectly fine lives. The second issue that this type of content is going to bring into your life is that it's going to convince you that you have enemies. It's going to convince you that there are people out there who are scheming to get you, who are against your way of life, who are just waiting in the bushes to kill you. None of that is true. The average person is way too much of a coward to do anything that drastic, and while there might be people whose lifestyle don't align with yours and whose political ideas don't align with yours, this does not mean that they're your enemy. Most of them don't even fucking know you and you don't know them. This is just another way that people have found to keep you perpetually anxious and to trigger your fear instincts, because naturally, if you're told that the world is 50% people just like you, that think just like you, that are the good guys, and 50% evil monsters that are out to get you and to drink your blood, you're not going to be able to sleep at night, and you're not going to be able to just be content and happy, because you'll constantly be in a state where you'll be in a survival mode. But the reality of the situation is that you are not in a survival mode. It's just that political parties and people who make money off of politics have perfectly understood that if you keep people fearful, they become much easier to control because they stop thinking. So if you see people pushing an us versus them mentality, if you see people that are clearly trying to get you mad at other groups you've never met or interacted with in your life, please do me a favor and stop giving these people's attention. I do not care if you're left-wing or right-wing. Both sides of the spectrum have their grifters, people who are only there for the money and the attention. These people will sing any tune that they can to keep your attention. If you perceive that tendency in a human, understand that they're not doing that for you, they're doing that for them. Walk the fuck away. And I know that we have a tendency as humans to fall for this trick because despite the fact that we are apparently advanced and civilized, we are deep down still animals and we are tribalistic. It's an us versus them. It's my own first. I'm not going against that mindset because I also apply it in my life. That being said, I would prefer if you attempted to resist it when it comes to social media, because within social media, it makes no sense, it's not beneficial. It makes a lot of sense in your everyday life to prioritize people from your own community who have your same values and who live around you, because if they live a good life, you most likely also will have a good life. But social media completely removes you from this equation. And this is another thing I want to discuss, the fact that oftentimes social media can become a way for humans to outsource personal responsibility. Now you can literally just look at your phone and there you have a reason and an excuse to explain why you're sad, why you have a general lack of enthusiasm about life. And this is the part where we're going to start talking about sadness, because while being mad is not a good thing, being sad is also as detrimental. Not because sadness in itself is an issue, but because sadness that you download from an outside source is very unlikely to result in anything positive, because how exactly are you supposed to fix it? I see all of these people who get sad to tears when they see all of these conflicts around the world, all of these people getting killed. I get it, it's very, very sad, but what exactly do you expect to do about that? If you take up that sadness on your shoulders, shouldn't it be to make something positive out of it? The 99% of people who end up falling for the news of social media and the news of this frustration and cycle of desperation end up doing nothing with it. Which is a shame, because usually these are the type of people who want to change the world for the better. That is commendable. But how are you supposed to do that if you allow the information you consume to turn you into a bitter and desperate individual? Now you're going to stay passive forever. It's not going to fix anything, because the world is not going to get fixed by people being sad. The more people are sad, the more people stay passive, and then nothing happens. What would actually change the world for the better is if everyone improved themselves and then leveraged that new gained power to enact change around them. But this requires, first and foremost, to not throw a pity party at every single occasion. So I hope you're not that type of person, but just in case you are, stop telling yourself that you're living in the end times. Stop telling yourself that your life is so difficult and that this moment in history is the worst time in the totality of existence to be born. That is not true, and I hope that you know that this is complete bullshit. But I felt the need to say that and bring that up because I keep seeing people post about apparently having lived through a plague, apparently having lived through like 2, 3, 4 years of hell. You know what I'm talking about, right? I'm not allowed to talk about the events in particular because I would get my channel deleted again. But what goes on in the minds of these people, I cannot fathom. And the worst part is that I'm starting to see people who fantasize about it. People who start to say, oh, I cannot wait to tell my kids how I lived through a plague. We didn't live through a fucking plague. It wasn't a fucking plague. Do you know what the plague was? The bubonic plague in Europe killed 200 million people. Back then, it was 50% of the total European population. Comparing what we went through to what they had to deal with, which was an actual hell on earth, is one, it's really shitty to our ancestors, and two, it's pathetic because it's not even true. But this is because if you can somehow convince yourself that your environment is horrible, you can find a way to justify why your life within the environment sucks. And now it's not about you anymore. It's not your fault anymore. It's the fault of the circumstances. And once again, we see this complete and total outsourcing of personal responsibility. And I think it's quite telling that it would be this generation right now that would do that the most. Because if you're curious, go back and read diaries from 300 years ago. And you'll find that people rarely complained, even though they went through things much worse than what we go through. I think it's because back then they didn't have social media. It's not just that they couldn't showcase their frustration or their sadness, it's that they didn't have that echo chamber that reverberates the sadness. Because when you have it, you are constantly exposed to people who behave like this, and it's tempting to behave just like them because it's tempting to have an excuse. It's tempting to be able to find something outside of yourself to explain why you're not doing good. But sadly, this is also the very mindset that keeps these people mediocre and miserable. Because when you outsource personal responsibility enough, you also end up teaching yourself how to be helpless. Because now nothing is your fault, but nothing is also your responsibility. So you no longer have leverage on your fate. And this is why this generation of Westerners, which is the most privileged in the history of humanity, is also somehow the one that seems the least capable of impacting their fate and the one that believes the most in determinism. The one that seems to believe the most that things are fixated and destiny is set on tracks. How exactly are you supposed, with that generation of weaklings, to create a revolution? It's absolutely impossible. And I'm not here to be a Che Guevara, the Wish. I'm here to try and create a revolution within yourself. Before you go onto the street and you change the world, try to change your view on the world, your outlook on the world that is inside yourself. And once that is done, then maybe we can set on to bigger and better things. And that starts simply by not consuming media that would give you an excuse to surrender your agency, because again, these sources of media teach you how to be helpless. So here's my advice when it comes to that, because I'm not telling you to just shut yourself down to the rest of the world. I think it's important to know somewhat what is going on, even though the majority of news is completely irrelevant. What I think you should do instead is this. Try to have a cycle and a circle rather of priorities. And the circle goes as follows. The first circle and the one that you should focus the most on is yourself. Worry about yourself. This is not selfish, okay? It's important that you take care of yourself and you become a better person if you want to be a help to others. If you become bitter and helpless, you're never going to help anyone. You just become a burden on people. So focus on becoming more competent and balanced. Then once that is done, and that already will take you a long time, then you can worry about your family and people that you love. I'm always amazed with all of these bleeding hearts on social media who will tell you about, oh, this conflict 3,000 miles ago. And then when you dig into their personal life, you find out that their mom hates them, their dad hates them, their dad hates them. Why exactly are you trying to extend love to people you don't even fucking know when the people under your roof cannot fucking stand you? That is a clear sign that your priorities are not in order. So make peace and make love with the people around you. That should already occupy you for a lifetime. Then, if you're an exceptional person and you manage to do both of that, you can then move on to your community. So people who are not technically related to you, and you can become a pillar of the community. You can start to spread your blessing with the people that live in close proximity to you. Most people will never get to that level. I'm not at that level yet. After this, if you're not just exceptional, if you're one of the chosen ones, you can apply that same energy to your country, okay? Country is only fourth on the list. And then finally, at the end of all of that, we can start worrying about the world with people you will never meet. And I know that it might sound crazy because we now live under the diktats of universalism, where you're told that you should feel the same way about your mom and about a kid in Pakistan that has lost a fruit or something. That is total fucking bullshit. And if this makes me a bad person to say it, I don't give a fuck. I think that this is actually a very perverse way to approach life because it's teaching people the exact opposite thing. It's teaching people how to not love anyone because you are not loving these people you don't know. That's not what love is. If anything, you're feeling bad about them because it makes you feel better about yourself because you can tell yourself you're a good person. And some of that stems from guilt, which is why it's so prevalent in the Western world. You see white people do that a lot. White people feel guilty about having a good life. And so they're constantly trying to find ways to show that they still have a beating heart and that they still feel for people in third world countries that are not doing as well. But you'll also notice that at the same time, these people will never actually send money or give up any of their privilege. So that way they have the best of both worlds. They have a very comfortable life and they have a very comfortable conscience. They can sleep at night. Well, I personally don't like that and I despise people who behave like this. But it's not the only way it manifests in people's life. You also have a constant dread of existence that is sort of It's underneath the surface in the modern world, and people always try to find a way to deal with it by means of escapism, by consuming something that takes you out of your body, that makes you forget that you're human for a second. And social media is absolutely devastating when it comes to that, because it is literally the best way to do exactly this, to escape yourself. And this is what we call killing time. Now, just the words and the colloquialism killing time should tell you that there is a problem with it, because you only have a finite amount of time on your hands, so you really don't want to be killing it. But I know for a fact that you do it, because I also sometimes catch myself doing it. It's what is known as doom scrolling. It's when you go onto social media and you do this. You just scroll. You're just intaking vast amounts of information, but you never stop to actually look at anything. It's just a way to keep you distracted, and it's a way to keep you hyper-stimulated, so you never actually think. You're never left alone with your thoughts. That also is very comfortable, but it's also what breeds weakness, because your thoughts might murmur something into your ear about what you must do. Instead, you find a way to be passive by shutting down that voice and bombarding your brain with all of these flashes of light, stimulation, and information that are going to zombify you with time. Because if you keep feeding yourself all of that stimulation, what are the chances you're going to be able to actually get shit done in everyday life? This is also a thing that I see a lot with young men on social media, where they constantly consume all of this motivation content, but then they go back to jerking off, because their brain was satisfied with the motivation. They had that spike of dopamine, they felt like a superhero for 15 minutes, and then they go back to being a zero. And that cycle keeps going as long as you allow it to, as long as you keep consuming the media that provides you with the stimulation that allows you to stay passive. Because keep in mind that when you're bored and you feel that need to have something happen, that's a good sign that it's time to work, it's time to read a book, it's time to think about something, to go for a hike or to start training. But all of these things take effort and they take time. So it's going to be much faster for you to just grab your phone and just scroll for 10 minutes and be done with that. But this quick repetition of dopamine kicks is what keeps you addicted. And it's not limited to social media. Porn is also that. If you're the type of person that catches themselves looking at porn several times a day, sometimes even not masturbating to it, you have a problem. It's literally that the action of looking at naked women and sexual acts is giving you that little dopamine kick that you need to keep the cycle going. Compulsive eating is a good example. If you find yourself eating out of boredom, that is also that. It's aligned exactly with the same thing. We are wired as humans to seek pleasure, but for tens of thousands of years, this was because it kept us alive. Now we live in a modern world where it's no longer keeping you alive, but your brain still wants that pleasure. And so you will find it wherever it is, and you will also always go for the cheapest options, because they're the ones who are available right now. They're the ones who are going to give you that instantaneous gratification. And that instinct you cannot go against. I don't give a fuck if you're a yogi on top of a mountain or if you meditate for 15 hours a day, you will never kill that human instinct. The best you can do is you can push it away. And the best way to push it away is delayed gratification. Instead of going for the cheap shots of quick pleasure, still go for pleasure, but go for long-time pleasure, long-lasting pleasure that you only get after you've put in effort. That is what fitness is. The reason why so many of us stick to fitness, like running, like swimming or lifting weights, is because after the effort comes the joy. Your body gives you all of that endorphin, but this time it's earned. You actually earned it. And the mechanism that triggers the pleasure is actually positive. It's not a toxic one. And this is what makes all of the difference. I think that the demonization of pleasure is a bad move, because you will never convince humans that pleasure doesn't feel good. It's not possible. But what you can tell them is that the way you get to that pleasure is what actually matters at the end of the day, because it would encourage a new generation of people to seek pleasure in healthy ways. But this is easier said than done, and this is one of the biggest challenges of the modern world, because you have to literally seek out your struggles. It's no longer handed to you. The tiger is not hunting you anymore. You have to be the one hunting the tiger. And if you wanted, you could stay away from the tiger. You could spend a life of absolute comfort, total passivity. That is available to 100% of people who live in the Western world. But the thing is that it wouldn't make you happy, and it would not be fulfilling at all. And I think that fulfillment, at the end of the day, is more important. This is what allows you to sleep peacefully at night. But I also want to be careful and not to verse into the opposite extreme, which would be to let productivity dictate your life and to become a beast of labor in a sense, to become someone who, instead of training to live, lives to train. I know what I'm talking about. It happened to me. I made a video about it. It's in the description if you want. It's the gym cell thing. It's when you start going to the gym and it becomes your everything, it becomes your personality, and you cannot exist without it. Now you miss the point because lifting is no longer improving your life. So you always have to keep in mind that effort and struggle are indeed vital for your mental health and your ability to be happy if and only if they are always aligned with that. They're always aligned with that pursuit of fulfillment. They cannot themselves become the fulfillment. And one solution that I have found for that allowed me personally to extirpate myself both from the pursuit of pleasure and the pursuit of pain, which in reality is the same, it's driven by the same mechanism of the human mind, is to seek contentment, which is the action of being satisfied with what you have at the moment. Because oftentimes, happiness is presented as a list of items that you have to accomplish, and once you get to number 23, then you'll magically be happy. But the issue is that it doesn't work, and as I said at the start of the video, if anything, these items are going to pile up, and they're going to become a burden, and they're going to be the reason why you cannot actually reach that contentment. So instead, what I would like you to do is, I would like you to scratch items off of that list. I would like you to reduce the amount of things that you think you need to be happy. And I don't want you to have a blank list because that's not possible. You're human and you desire things. And the desire for these things pushes you forward and it motivates you to get shit done. That's a good thing, right? This is not a video telling you to renounce all and to embrace a level of Buddhism that I personally don't believe is appropriate for the average human. But it doesn't take nirvana levels of enlightenment to be grateful about the things that you have instead of focusing about the things that you don't have. And so I would like you, as a modern man, to spend more time in your day practicing gratefulness. And I insist on the practice because gratefulness is oftentimes misconstrued, I guess, on social media, where it's often presented as just a passive act. To me, that's not the case at all. Yes, there is a passivity to gratefulness where you should always be happy about what you have. But more importantly, there are also ritualistic aspects to gratefulness that need to be actually put into place on a daily basis, because gratefulness is first and foremost a habit. And as we all know, a habit is a rabbit. But I have a bit of a story to tell you on this, because the person who personally taught me gratefulness is my mom, who I know watches some of my videos because she's trying to get better at English. And the way she taught it to me when I was a very young kid is very simple. Every single day I would wake up and I would be a grumpy boy. My mom would tell me, okay, how many limbs do you have? And I would count my limbs for her. I would say 4. She'd say, okay, what do you have on top of your body right now? And I would say, oh, I have a blanket. And she would say, okay, what do you have on top of your head right now? I would say, oh, I have a roof. She said, okay, what is waiting for you on the kitchen table? And I would say, oh, it's my cereal, so my breakfast. She said, okay, after you eat that, you're going to go somewhere. Where are you going? Are you going to the mines? Like your grandpa? My grandpa worked in the mines when he was 9. She used to tell me all the time that. She was like, are you going to the mines like your grandpa? And I was like, no, I'm going to go to a school. And she's like, oh, and is this school terrible? Is it cold? Are people mean? Do you kick rocks all day? I was like, no, it's warm and people are nice and I learn things. She was like, all right, well then stop being grumpy because you have a good life. So get up, be grateful for what you have and enjoy it. And even though sometimes I see people who tend to resent that type of life lesson by their parents because it's a little bit boomerish, I'm also very grateful she did because she prevented me from turning into a spoiled brat. And I think that this is critical because as a Westerner, you are most likely a spoiled brat. Your life has been way too fucking easy and so you take it for granted. You take for granted that all you've ever gotten was normal. Plot twist, it's not normal. There are generations about generations of people who died and slaved away so that you could have that comfortable life. And not seeing that and not being grateful for it is a direct insult to them. But it doesn't just stop there. It's not just an insult to them, it's also bad for you because it's the reason why you can't be happy. If you have a kid who has everything that he wants and you give him a new toy, he won't give a shit. He has so many toys, that won't make him happy. You are that kid. You have so much piling up on top of you that you are no longer able to enjoy the things in life that should make you happy. And this is caused directly by the fact that the modern world lacks external struggle. It's that tiger I was describing previously. And what ends up happening when humans don't no longer have external struggle is that they create it. You would think if we were a perfect species that we would just lay out in the sun and enjoy ourselves and not create new problems out of thin air, but clearly this is not the case at all, because we now deal with a generation that is plagued by internal struggles. Some of that is created by chemical imbalances, and some of you guys can't help it. That being said, I also want to make clear that from what we know, the majority of people who struggle with mental health are people who are perfectly normal, right? Clinically speaking, there's nothing wrong with their brain. There's something wrong instead with their environment. And the environment you are in total control of. And while some environments that are overwhelmingly difficult to deal with because there's too much external struggle in them, like for example, having a toxic or violent family environment, you'll also find that a lot of people in the Western world suffer from the exact opposite. There is nothing in their direct environment around them that could justify them feeling like this. So we have to conclude from that what causes the issues is the lack of the problem. And this is especially true for men, because a lot of times for us, we find our happiness in struggle. So if we are put in a situation that is too comfortable with not enough struggle, we suffer mentally. And that suffering is the sign that something has to be done. But because we now live in a society that no longer tolerates any level of discomfort, whenever someone suffers from something like anxiety, for example, we tell ourselves, okay, we cannot let that happen. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove the anxiety. We're not going to try and find the reason why you feel anxious in the first place. We're just going to find a way to band-aid that and remove that feeling. Is that going to make you happy? I mean, it will make you less anxious, of course, but will it make you happy? Most of the time, you'll find that the answer is no. So instead, how about reframing the way we view anxiety? Something that is now becoming much more prevalent within our spheres, where we're going to look at anxiety as fuel. Anxiety is a message. It's your brain telling you, hey, something needs to happen for the anxiety to go away. And there is a very high chance that this something is just action. It's literally just getting something done. In a sense, anxiety is your brain trying to blackmail you into fulfilling a level of imperative that you're not aware of. An imperative that might not be relevant in the modern world, but that still has the ability to put you in a hole if you refuse to obey it. And maybe one day, humanity will reach a level of technology where all of us is just tied to a machine and pumped full of dopamine. And we all just live a permanent level of bliss. That is a possibility. I personally think that if we do get to that level one day, we will no longer be human. We'll be something else. Because what defines humanity is that. It's these negative emotions that have always pushed us forward. And in that vein, I think that you should also learn how to embrace these negative emotions, not to accept them or to make them a part of your personality or surrender to them, but accept that sometimes they just happen. Look at me. Right now, I'm surrounded by nature and it's very cold, but I love the cold and I'm talking to you guys. So I'm very happy, but I'm not always like this. You don't always see me. I never record when I'm sad, for example, when I have blue days. And when these days happen, I used to get into my own head and I would think, why do I feel like this? I would try to intellectualize it. And finally, I would, in a sense, I would cement that feeling into me. I would make it a part of me. I've grown now to a point where when I'm sad, I'm able to just tell myself, okay, you're sad. You're sad and that's okay. You'll be sad for a day. You get to be sad for a day. Our existence is so pleasurable and it's so fun. We get to have one day off. I'm hearing something behind me. Maybe you'll see a deer walk through the camera. But what I want you to know is that you should not be guilted into pushing away sadness whenever it happens. You should not be guilted by this cult of happiness and pleasure that we have nowadays. It's perfectly normal for you to feel down sometimes, because the reason why you feel up is because at some point you felt down. It is the globality of human emotions that makes life worth living. And this is also very relevant when it comes to actually learning how to cope with these emotions. Because if you end up developing the habit of running away from them, you will find that when these emotions refuse to go away, if you are dealing with deep sadness or deep anger, you will no longer be able to control yourself. You will become a slave and a thing to the emotion, because whenever you had opportunities to deal with these emotions in smaller doses, to learn how to deal with them and cope with them, you rejected them entirely. And sometimes this can be very uncomfortable because when you have to face your emotions, you have to spend time with them, right? It would be much better to just go onto YouTube and look at a video that is going to make you forget that you're sad. But just like with anxiety, that is not actually going to make you less sad. It's just going to make you forget that you're sad. And that's comfortable, but as we've seen throughout this video, the comfortable option also is really the one that leads to positive changes down the line. And to give you an example of this, I personally had a pretty bad habit of losing control of events in my life where things didn't go exactly as I planned, which would make me spiral because I'm a bit of a control freak. And so if things didn't go exactly my way, I would just sabotage the entire thing and I would be down for the count. I would be down for 48 hours, which is completely stupid because oftentimes it meant that a very small thing that would have normally impacted me for 2 hours ended up impacting me for 2 weeks, and that's not okay. So it's a tendency that because I did not like and I did not want to be like that, I walked on. I didn't lean into it and I didn't pretend it didn't exist. And nowadays, thanks to all of this work, I'm much better at dealing with that specific emotion because I treated the emotion like a habit. An issue that will prevent you from doing the same mental fortitude work is the fact that oftentimes you're going to think that the issue is with the emotion and the habit and not with the way you react to them. An emotion just happens to you. After that, you have a choice to engage with the emotion, feed the emotion or feed the habit, or you have a choice to just shut it down. This is your responsibility. That is the part where you come into play. The part where the things happen to you that will never stop. You will never not be sad. That's not possible. You will never not have the inclination to be lazy or pleasure-seeking. That's not possible. But the way you react to that once it starts to knock on your door, this is your responsibility. And you can never deny that. If you falter and if you fail and if you allow these emotions and habits to grow, it is on you. But if you do put in that work and you do end up feeding the habits and emotions that you want to see come back more into your life, you'll find that they will grow. And by focusing on these things, your life as a whole and your outlook on life as a whole is going to greatly improve. And this is why I insist on gratitude as a tool. Because gratitude does something to you that is the exact opposite of a lot of these negative emotions and habits. It anchors you into the present. If you look at something like escapism, of course, escapism takes you out of your body, and so you're not really there. Something like anxiety is very similar. Anxiety is essentially your brain projecting you into the future and telling you, hey, worry about what would happen then. But the issue with this is that you don't have the ability to impact what will happen then. So you are stuck in that cycle of suffering. And this is in reality the main issue with that disorder in particular, is that it prevents you from living in the now, and because the now is where you would be able to actually act and actually make a difference and impact your problems, then you are stuck because there's no solution. The solution is always out of reach. So instead, to counterbalance these moments where you are not in the moment, you have to find places and pockets of time in your day-to-day life where you can fully immerse yourself into the action, because this is how you practice active gratitude. So for example, something that I personally like to do is when I eat, I'm fully immersed in my food and I'm fully grateful for the food. I'm not watching YouTube, I'm not listening to something else or have the TV in the background. I'm eating, and that is that. It is very easy to create that ritual for you on a daily basis. And you'll find that once you have that, you will have a point in your day, several times throughout the day, when you will know for a certitude that you will be fully to yourself and with yourself. And this is also a great opportunity to spend time with the people that you love. That is also an aspect of gratitude that is very important. We need to bring it back in the modern world. Look at how many of us are so alone. Look at how many of us are so miserably disconnected from our communities. What do you think this comes from? Where do you think this comes from? A lot of that is circumstances, yes, but it's also a lot of bad habits. I'm certain that some of you guys, when you were young teens, you did what? When it was time to eat with your family, you would take the plate, you would go into your bedroom and you would eat by yourself. You have literally started to develop a habit that has isolated you from people, which then years down the line made you someone who is clinically alone. So whenever you have the chance, spend time with real people. Likewise, when you hang out with people around you, get off the fucking phone. The phone is taking you away from the present moment. It's taking you away from the presence of the people that surround you that you should be able to enjoy. And all of this greatly participates into my point that modern technology and modernity as a whole was supposed to enhance our life, but instead it literally replaced our life. It replaced what made life, which is interpersonal relationship with people just staring at phones. It has destroyed so much of our ability to relate to one another. Even within my own family, I remember 12 years ago when we would all go to a cafe or a restaurant and everyone would joke and laugh and look at each other in the eyes. Nowadays, everyone is like this on their stupid fucking phone. What even is the point of us going out if we're not going to connect? So I think it's our responsibility as the new generation to relearn these experiences, to relearn these patterns, and to relearn the gratefulness of being with one another. If we can do that, and we can push away that technology that prevents us from doing that, I guarantee you that general happiness is going to skyrocket. Overall, this is what active gratefulness constitutes. It's these small steps, these small rituals that just bring you back to your roots. They bring you back to what really matters. And another one of these things I would like you to spend more time reflecting on is your health. Health is the thing that we take for granted the most, even more than family. And actually, it's crazy to think about because good health is the best thing you can have. It's literally the most important thing you can have. But it also has a tendency to spoil the soul because you think you're entitled to it. And you see that when you relate the way you feel when you're sick to the way you feel when you're healthy. Think back to every single time in your life you were sick, even something like just a flu or something more severe that took you months to actually heal from. What was the only thing that you wanted in that moment? What was the only thought that occupied your brain? Was it to get a new car? Was it to get that girl that's cute? Was it to get a new video game? No. The only thing you cared about in that moment was to get better. It's the only thing you could focus on. But then, when you finally get better, do you think about it? How many of you guys wake up and think, damn, I'm in good health today. I'm so blessed. I would guarantee you that 0% of you do that. Why? Because it's there. We are spoiled brats, things that are there, even if they're the most important things in our life, we don't actually take enough time to appreciate. So here's what I would like you to do. When you wake up in the morning and you're in good health, tell yourself out loud, today is a good day because I'm fully healthy and I hope it continues like this. I guarantee you that this small thing, this small habit is going to completely change your outlook on life because it's going to make you go through your day thinking you're blessed because you are blessed. You have legs that walk. You have lungs that function. Everything is going fine. Do you understand how crazy that is? Do you understand the amount of people stuck in hospital beds throughout the world that would kill to be in your position? Just for them alone and for their sake, enjoy life to the fullest with the able body that you are given. And talking about things that are amazing that we take for granted and never appreciate enough, how about this? How about nature? How about the splendor of creation? That is not appreciated enough. And I'm also someone who doesn't spend enough time in nature. But I've found out that every single time I make a habit of coming out into that forest and sitting there with a book, my happiness skyrockets. My mental health gets fixed. Why? Because we spent all of our existence in there. That was our life for tens of thousands of years, if not hundreds of thousands of years. Then we moved on into bunkers made of cement and we think, oh, our mental health tanked. What happened? Gee, I wonder what happened. I wonder what used to be an integral part of our existence that now left. I wonder what that key ingredient that used to make us balanced was. Could it maybe be the thing that we came from, nature? And I know I sound like a complete tree hugger, but I am a tree hugger because nature is truly amazing. So if you have the choice, please go out and enjoy it as much as you can. There is a reason why living in big cities is notoriously depressing. It's because you're cut from that beauty. When you're surrounded by gray buildings and gray skies and pollutions and the smell of piss, the chance of you having a positive outlook on life and being excited about existence is very, very slim. And I know what I'm talking about. I spent 20 years of my life in Paris and I was chronically depressed. I was always down and I was always low, and I thought it was normal because it was my normal. It was my baseline. Then I moved out here. I left that godforsaken city and I moved in places where there are trees and people behave like humans and it smells good. And guess what? My mental health skyrocketed. And suddenly I was happy and I was like, oh, so this is what life is supposed to be about. This is existence. Now it makes much more sense. And I understand that some of you guys don't have a choice. You live in big cities because this is where the jobs are. I get it. Not everyone can live in the sticks. But take every chance that you have to touch grass, as the youth says, to get into contact with nature. Even if it's only 2 weeks out of the year, it's going to make a massive difference. And if for some reason you cannot do that, the best replacement I have of this is books. Books is the healthiest mean of escapism that I can come up with for you guys, because it takes effort, it teaches you things, and also there is no algorithm. And as I explained earlier in the video, it's the algorithm that is going to be designed to feed you content that is going to keep you down and keep you low. And I understand that this might sound a bit hypocritical coming from me because I make videos on YouTube, but let me tell you one thing. If leaving this platform and never watching another one of my videos again means that you end up with better mental health and a better life, then I'm all for it. You owe it to yourself to try at least once. Try at least once to remove yourself from social media. And there's a chance I will never see you again. And if that's the case, farewell, my friend. Hasta la vista. I hope you have a great existence. I'm glad that you made that choice. And this pretty much concludes this video. So here's a quick summary of everything that I just told you, of things you can do for your mental health. 1, be very selective with what you let into your brain. If you spend hours consuming negative media, no amount of self-improvement on the side will make up for it. 2, be careful with people who teach you about self-improvement, especially if their method includes a long list of things you have to add onto your life, because most likely these are the very things that will make your life more miserable. 3, on the topic of being content, stop looking at the neighbor's plate. The fact that there's food in yours should be enough. This is not a message for you to stop caring about the world or to not be outraged when things are not going well. What I tell you is this: there is no point in being outraged if the person that gets outraged is incapable of enacting change. So make sure that all of these emotions, this madness, this sadness, doesn't take you away from what matters, which is becoming a more competent and dependable person. And once that is done, you can leverage that power to make the changes that you think are important for the world. 4, happiness is an act, and contentment is the result of that act. So if you want to be constantly content and you want to keep anxiety or depression away, you're going to have to keep up the habits that you managed to build up that pushed these negative things away and that created your happiness. I guarantee you, if you let them go, the depression and anxiety and negative emotions will come back. I know that for a fact. My rock in my life is training. If I stop training for 3 or 4 days, all of the dark thoughts that I thought were gone, they're right back because they never truly left. What kept them at bay was the habit. So once you find this habit, never let go of it, because you know just as well as I do that good habits are extremely tough to build and maintain, but bad habits come back like this, and once they're installed, they're extremely hard to kick out. And 5th and final point, don't forget that it doesn't take much more than this to be happy. I think you can hear the chicken. They're going crazy. Can you hear them? I'm not sure. Well, what I mean by this is that at the end of the day, happiness is a choice, and you can choose to be happy with what you have. You can choose to be happy with the life that you have and the people in your life that you love. And that should be enough. Don't let your happiness depend on an item or an action, because oftentimes you'll find that once you get that thing, you'll still not be happy. You took the wrong road. And to really impart that lesson upon you, I'm going to leave you with my favorite poem of all times. Let us raise a glass, let us drink, to this creature called man. Good and evil repeat in an endless cycle, on the spiral of time, where a lifetime is far too long for peace, yet far too short for war. That is why they yearn, That is why they foster. If only they knew that all one needs in life is the sun, the soil, and poetry. If you can tell me what the name of the author is, you are getting my eternal respect, because that's a very hard one to find. But that is going to be that for today. I hope that this video was helpful, that is going to allow you to build a better mental health. And I'm going to leave you with that. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.